You see AI everywhere these days, right? And, so are the myths. Between the Hollywood hype and all the news headlines, it's really easy to get confused. So let's spend the next few minutes together figuring out what's real and what's just science fiction.
I mean, this is the big one, isn't it? It's the question that's kind of buzzing in the back of everyone's mind. As these systems get smarter and smarter, are they, developing their own thoughts, their own feelings, maybe even their own secret plans? It's a really compelling and, yeah, a slightly terrifying idea.
But that's exactly why we're here. In this explainer, we're going to cut right through all that noise. We're getting to the truth, and we're going to debunk some of the biggest myths you hear about AI.
And we have to start with the biggest one of all, this idea of the conscious, self-aware machine. The one that has totally captivated our imaginations for decades. I mean, this line says it all, doesn't it? We have been absolutely conditioned by characters like HAL 9000 to imagine AI as these sentient beings with real emotions, intentions, and yeah, even the capacity for betrayal. It makes for amazing drama, but is it actually accurate?
Well, this really shows you the massive gap between the myth and the reality. On one hand, we imagine an AI that thinks and feels, but the truth? It's a lot more technical. Today's AI is basically a hyper-sophisticated pattern recognition machine. It's not feeling anything. It's just calculating probabilities based on the insane amounts of data it's been trained on. So here's why that matters. Thinking of AI as a tool instead of a creature, it changes everything. It lets us focus on its incredible capabilities and also its very real limitations while keeping us, the humans, firmly in the driver's seat.
Okay, so if we're thinking of AI as a tool, that actually leads us right into our second huge myth, the belief that just because it's a machine, it must be perfect and completely unbiased. We all tend to trust computers, right? It's just natural to assume that an AI, with access to pretty much all of human knowledge, would be this flawless source of truth, like an oracle for the modern age. But here's the catch. We want a perfect, objective AI, but the reality is that these models are trained on data made by us, by humans, and all that data from the internet, from books, from articles, it is packed with our own biases, our mistakes, our flaws. The old programming saying garbage in, garbage out has literally never been more true. And this is why it is so unbelievably important to remember this. Human oversight and critical thinking are not optional here. We have to question the output. We have to consider where the training data came from. And we should never, ever just take an AI-generated answer at face value without checking it. So if AI isn't a conscious creature, and it's not a perfect oracle, what does that actually mean for us in the real world? Well, that brings us to the myth that causes the most anxiety for pretty much everyone, the impact of AI on our jobs and our futures. The fear is pretty straightforward, and it's visceral. A robot is coming for my job. The whole narrative is often about mass unemployment, a future where all our human skills just become redundant. But the real story is a lot more nuanced. So yeah, some jobs will be displaced by automation, that's at first bar, but just look at the next two. A huge number of jobs are going to be augmented. That means AI will act like a co-pilot, making us better and more efficient at what we do. And just like with every other major tech shift in history, entirely new jobs and industries will be created, jobs we probably can't even imagine right now. So the takeaway here is actually really powerful. The conversation needs to shift from replacement to adaptation. This whole thing forces us to double down on the skills that are uniquely human. Things like critical thinking, creativity, strategic planning, empathy. The future isn't about competing against AI, it's about learning to collaborate with it. So after all that debunking, how should we actually be thinking about AI? It's not a sentient being, it's not a perfect oracle, and it's not just a job killer. It's something else entirely. It's a new kind of tool, and this gives us a really simple, practical framework for how to use it. First, treat it like a co-pilot, not an autopilot. Second, always question its output. And third, focus on building up those uniquely human skills that AI just can't replicate. So if we can move past all the sci-fi fears and see AI for what it really is, an incredibly powerful, seriously flawed, and truly transformative tool, then the real question isn't about the threat anymore. It's about the opportunity. And that is something really worth exploring.